Well, where are you at? Like, what part of the world are you at?
Denmark.
Denmark? There's probably a bunch of Italians over there, right?
No.
Well, that's messed up.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Mentor Block. I'm your host, Wick Brillo, and this first episode is going to be a really great one. But first, allow me to talk a little bit about what this show will be. If you're part of the art show community, you will remember a few months back I asked for students to comment on subjects they wish to learn more about, and that's what we're here for. I picked one of these students for each show moving forward to learn about the subject they asked for. And today's subject will be dynamic poses, one of my personal favorite subjects to talk about, to teach, and to work on myself. So this is going to be exciting for me just for that. However, for this to work, we of course need a student, we of course need a mentor. So allow me to introduce first the student, Miss Serah Semba. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how's
And
everyone doing?
and thank you for being here. You were actually one of the first ones to comment, and I really liked your subject so much that I decided that the first show had to be about this, and that's why you're here.
Okay, so I have an issue with, I guess, dynamic poses. So that is, it's because it's kind of rare to see used in a lot of medium, whether it's comics or animation or whatnot. And I really like to challenge myself. So I would like to know more about how these poses kind of work, or how the system of dynamic poses work. So that is what I'm hoping for in this class.
And you know what? I do believe I have the perfect mentor for you as well. He's an art teacher with over 30 years of experience. His YouTube videos now numbers over 700 videos of teachings in all kinds of arts. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Mr. Robert Marzullo.
How you doing? Hi, Sarah. Hi, Rick.
Hi, Mr. Robert. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
So happy to have you here, Robert. So let's get right into it. Sarah is struggling with dynamic poses, something I know for a fact that you have been teaching a lot about in your videos, both on Gumroad Skillshare and your YouTubes. So I was hoping you could bring some of that teaching here and hopefully make it easier for Sarah in the future when she's working on this particular issue. I also understand that Sarah, before we started recording this, sent you some of her work. So you've gotten like a little idea of what to focus on.
Yeah, well, she sent me in some files so that I could kind of analyze the work, and then it gives me a better idea of, where I can help out. Because, if you jump right on the live stream and you look at the work, it's not like it takes a long time to figure it out, but it's nice when you can get some of that work back, again, analyze it, figure out where I might be able to impart some wisdom, But she's doing a great job. I can share these, and then we can do some quick draw-throughs. I can offer what I think she could work on. But yeah, you're already off to a great job, Sarah. So with this one in particular, let me blue line it and then do a little bit of a draw over just to point out. Now, let me ask you this, Sarah. Like when you look at this, what's an area that you feel that you were struggling with, or you wish you could have did better? What do you see when you look at this piece?
I think the hand that's holding the staff, the foreshortening of it.
Okay, that was a tricky part. Okay, so let's do this. Let me add a little bit more space to the side of the canvas.
And the other arm also, I think, might be a little bit of an issue there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that one's too awfully bad. I kind of like it, but yeah, we'll see what we can do about that as well. And then let's see, let's add a little bit of white to the side of the canvas here. Okay. All right. So what I would probably do is, if I think you're on the right track. You definitely have a bit of perspective going like this, which
Mm.
is correct for the most part. Um, I think that if it's a staff, it's hard for me to tell how long the staff might be. This is like an orb thing at the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I see that. This is the staff, right?
It's not
Okay.
too long. I think it's about under the arm length a little bit.
Okay. So it's about the length of the arm then?
A little shorter, yeah.
Okay. So that's not bad. I would probably have the orb a little bit more like this and adjust it with the length of the staff. It's almost like the perspective is a little bit off if you were to go like, unless I'm seeing this wrong, but if you go like, here, the orb's over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that so? That would probably need to come over this way some. As far as the way the hand's holding it, I'm
The
wondering if,
hand and the arm, I think, also has an issue.
yeah, well, let me show you one quick thing about an arm in perspective that hopefully will help. For one, I almost feel like if the arm was coming out this angle, it would be up higher. It'd be up here somewhere. The orb
Oh.
definitely would, and the hand would be like this. So that's one part. But what I would really think about is something like this. So like when you go to draw an arm in perspective, a lot of times I'll draw an arm. Say it's her arm or something. I'll draw it off to the side as a reference point. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
if I can see it in the most basic perspective, in this case, a profile view, then I'm a lot more likely to nail that foreshortening. I almost got to have a little bit of a warm up and a reference off to the side. There's knuckles, closed fist hand. You don't have to draw the full arm in the same way, but what I like to do is kind of analyze what I think the distance is from here to here to here. And you see it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty even, right? Well, then when you go to foreshorten
I
this
can
this
see, yeah.
oh, could you see it?
Yeah, I'm
Can you
seeing it, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So when you go to foreshorten it, what generally you have to think about is that if you were to take uh, a boxy form and draw it in perspective. So let me line this up closer to what's actually here. So we say, here's the connection point of the shoulder. We come up to here. Like I said, I would probably extend this further. So I'd probably do something that resembles, let's try this. But the main thing
Mm-hmm.
is that when you draw in perspective like this, if you were to crisscross your corners and find your halfway mark,
Oh.
you see how much further down that is compared to over here and compared to
Yeah,
over
yeah.
here?
I'm
So what
mm-hmm.
happens is, and then that also gets affected by scale. So, you do this big hand, for instance. Let's try something like this. And these are tough ones to do, but wrapping around the shape of the spherical, staff or whatever. So, but what happens is you have this big hand and the wrist is hidden behind it. The connection point's hidden. The forearm
Mm-hmm.
needs to come all the way down here to be at that halfway point. Then the upper
Mm-hmm.
arm, and now notice too that's the upper arm and the shoulder. See that? So
Mm-hmm.
by the time you get down here, you even got to fit the shoulder in here. And then you also have to taper it real considerably or it doesn't look like foreshortening. And that's kind of what I see here. You've got it kind of evenly wide,
Mm.
where I think I would make that a bit more extreme. It's hard for me to say like, this is the right way, you should do it this way. One of the things is this is more of an anime style, so I don't know that it's as important in anime as it is. I'm traditionally like more American comics. But foreshortening should be foreshortening. And that's really where, and I actually think you got a better angle on your fingers than I do. And for hand poses like this, I'll actually just use I'll use my cell phone. I'll use the camera on the computer. I'll grab something and I'll hold it up in the computer and take that selfie shot for the reference for
Mhm.
there. But yeah, that's the main thing that I see, that I would really pay attention to the distance that it needs to recede back to truly be foreshortened. So where your halfway points are should help a lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so for the other arm, I think you did really good here. I would just kind of maybe give it a little bit more shape and form. But again, this might just be me wanting to impart the way that I would stylize something. I would make the wrist thinner, more of a curvature to the arm anatomy like that, and then maybe a little bit more expressive hands, so you could, the fingers are kind of real even like this, which is the right thing as far as alignment goes. But you could probably maybe try something like this,
Oh, that's neat.
and it just makes it look a little more expressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not too
Good.
much more work. It's pretty easy to do. So I'd probably try something like that. And then as far as like the cloth and things like that, I would probably try to soften that up a little bit. Like here, you got a good soft vibe going on. So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would just, you can like roll it into itself like this. You can really play around with these shapes and get a little bit more wild with it, I guess. But you got the right idea going on. I would just play around with that concept a little bit more. Like see, and I did the same thing where I made them too even. So a lot of times when we make things too even and repetitive, it takes away from the organic nature and life of it. So for instance, if I just took this one right here and I made it like bigger, and then I went to a bunch of evenly spaced ones, it almost looks more interesting because there's one larger by comparison. So I usually do that. I'll try to mix up. I'd probably fold that one more time. Or actually, probably the other way. Let's try this like that. So I would probably try to make it a little bit more randomized. And then you can really bend these lines right here all over the place. So I would do something like that without trying to rework the whole thing, but yeah, like I said, you got a good feeling of it right there. It does feel softer here. I think areas like this, you could probably bring some wrinkles over the leg like this and really push that perspective. One of the nice things about when you're trying to bring something out towards perspective, this is a good example right here. You really have to take advantage of stuff like this, where it really shows that spherical, feeling to the leg. And you can do that. You got your overlap looking good right there. You could bring out the flat part of the knee right here and really make that feel a bit more solid if you wanted. But yeah, these wrinkles like this can really help because they kind of reinforce that feeling that this area is. See, without them, it looks almost a little flat right there. But then if you just put in a couple wrinkles right there, it would really help that dimension a little bit. And that can go all over the place. It can go through the rib cage. It could be a little, you kind of just trace the forms a little bit. And some of them kind of crisscross right through the forms. So I like doing these kind of wrinkles where you'll see the wrinkle and then you see a little bit of the shadow under it. And you can place those wherever you want. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, like even this, you could, maybe you want it to feel more solid, or you could just add a couple of these little wrinkles like that. Or maybe right here would be a good spot since it's kind of bending over a little bit. But I know that kind of fights your pattern that you got here a little bit. But I just think that those wrinkles right there might might help it. Okay, so the other one that I wanted to look at, again, it's kind of a perspective thing, is right here. And again, Serah, when you look at this, what are areas that you felt that you might have struggled with?
The whole pose.
The pose itself?
Yeah, I basically took a picture of myself and dissected the position of holding a katana, and then I tried to deform it. So I guess the deformation is not as easy, even with using reference and everything.
No, good point. And and I think we all do that, and I've definitely done that myself. I still do that to this day. We were taught that in storyboards to use heavy reference, heavy pictures of yourself, set up tripods, stuff like that. And so you're on the right track. It's a very smart way to work. It's not as easy as people might think. At times it can be tricky to know when to distort it, when to exaggerate it, and that's why it's got to be coupled with, I think, where you draw freehand most of the time, and then you get used to drawing from the photos, drawing some inspiration from the photos, but not adhering to it too tightly. So I definitely feel what you mean there. So what I would say is, like, with this one, let me see if I can interpret it. Like, the head's coming towards camera a little bit. Or actually, I'll go back to a pencil. I would say the head's coming towards camera a bit. It's tilted down. And then, you've got the shoulders kind of like this. So one shoulder's leaning down, arms coming out towards camera. It's going across, holding the sword. And then same thing back here, and it's getting hidden, and arms kind of tucked up and under. So that's all good information. I think where it kind of starts to falter a little bit is where the feeling that the torso is receding backwards into space. You kind of got it. I mean, I definitely see some of the perspective right there, but for some reason it's not reading as clearly or as strong as it could. So I'm going to try to see if I can figure that out. So we got the perspective going back.
Maybe because of the jacket.
Yeah, I mean, the jacket does hide it, but it should still work, So let's see what it is. Like, we know the pelvis is going to get hidden more because it's a leaned over pose. So pelvis is going to be back further. We have this leg coming up really heavily. Is this the knee right there?
No, that's the start of the hip. Usually yes, this is the knee. Yeah.
Okay. So what I would say there is, like, you really want to go for those bony landmarks. Even if you did something like this. Okay, you want to explain your bony landmarks are like your get out of jail free card in drawing. Like, you want to get those in first. They really do. They make everything easier. They make remembering anatomy much easier. And so you get those in, and it's not that they always feel like, you don't have to leave them in even. Sometimes you can put the stuff in, pull it back a bit, but you don't want to ever not use them. It's like collarbones. Whenever you draw an upper torso, go right for the collarbones, because they're going to make it a lot easier to get your shoulders in place, your pectoralis, all your anatomy. But you got to start with the bony landmarks. So with this one, if we bring that leg out, I'll say it's right about here. I would really make that more extreme and more, like I said, more noticeable on that knee. And then, because then what it does, I don't know, I look at it like this, like when you're explaining an illustration to a viewer, well, you can't explain it, right? They just have to see it and appreciate it. So you have to really make sure that there's clarity in certain things. And that clarity is it makes it real easy for them to understand. So if there's certain areas of the work where it doesn't read as clearly, and you kind of have to think about it for a second guess it, I think that's the stuff you got to try to fix. So yeah, I would really bring that knee right out. And remember too, you can do little things like this that really help you to think about it dimensionally. Drawing these little light lines. See how that immediately looks more dimensional? Like almost like Spider-Man's webbing or something. Well, you can do that on every character, and it really helps you to start thinking more three-dimensionally. I think, anyways, it works for me. Hopefully it'll work for you. But
Yeah, it's
And
a
that's
neat
really,
hack. I like it. I'll try it.
yeah, it's easy to do, and I think it works. So now with this other leg, now we do have to think prospectively right here. So I probably should have started with perspective, but you know, you see what you got here. It's like something converging backwards. If we had to imagine our vanishing point back here somewhere.
Hmm.
And so we kind of need that so that when we bring this other leg down,
Okay.
we know where to overlap or how far to overlap things to get it to the ground plane here.
Hmm.
And again, I'd probably just shade that leg back like that. Leave a little bit of light on the foot and then shadow that. But, you know, that's just personal preference. To me, that just makes it easier. You know, it's like it explains it being receding backwards more and it's easier. So
Hmm.
all right, and then this arm over here. Now the thing that I saw that drew my attention first, I liked a lot of what you did with the body and the pose. It's the part where, okay, it gets a little bit lost right here. I almost feel like this is that a strap? Something holding this? Is that what
Yeah,
that
it's
is?
supposed to be where the sword, this big sword, kind of like folds, and this is where he puts it in this fold type of thing.
Okay. So
So
what
it
it,
is a strap for that kind of held for
yeah,
that.
so what it feels like to me is that needs to be a downward curve like this to match the perspective that the torso.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so I think that's one of the things that's fighting the perspective. You got to use the belt line, the leg, all that needs to be really downwardly sloped curves. And sometimes you can fix something by just really pushing that one area more. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it stops fighting the perspective. So if it was right here, I would really put a downward bend on both sides of that. Then attach I like the perspective you have on the opening for the sword. I think that is correct.
Mm.
So something like that, and then then apply the coat, and you know you can really take that coat and like just try to throw those lines so that it feels like it's moving. It feels like it's more dynamic. You know, just more wrinkles, more little flips up of the material. Same thing with the hair. You could really kind of push that if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Try to get it to flip up more in different spots. I don't know. That style, they generally have pretty stiff hair though, don't they?
Basically, in anime, they move the hair, but again, it's very versatile. Like some characters tend to leave it as it is, and others tend to move it. So it depends on the style itself.
Gotcha.
I think. So yeah, this is my OC, so you can do whatever you like with it. If you like to have the hair moving, or you know, as you like.
Yeah, I was just saying
Please,
that like
Mr. Robert, apply your personal style to it.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just think that, you know, if you have that hair kind of flowing around, it adds another dynamic to it. And then the sword
Hmm.
is the sword supposed to be okay, so I feel like the perspective here is like this, right? No. Is that
The
right?
perspective, excuse me,
Is this the perspective of the
of
hilt
the
right
sword.
here? Something like that? Is that the hilt
Yeah,
or
I
no?
think so. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
now
that's the hilt.
so is the sword supposed to be like all right, if I
Yeah,
drew this upright, is the sword supposed to
it's like
look like this? Something like that?
a little bit wider on the top. It's like this. If we can, like, it's similar to a Buster sword, so with a little
Okay.
bit of a curve to it.
So yeah, so I feel like that the it feels like it doesn't match the perspective as well. So what I'd probably do is I would draw actual perspective lines
Hmm.
like that. And then if it's going this way, you're going to see the bottom, and I think that's what this is, the bottom of the hilt. the part that connects to the blade.
Yeah.
And so the rest of it needs to
Yeah.
like kind of taper in more like this.
Uh-huh. That's correct.
Okay, so that I think that would help that to look better. And forgive me, I know this is really rough, but hopefully it makes sense for you. Put a shadow on
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense like that, yeah.
But like I said, you're doing a lot of things right. I really like, I mean, this is a cool pose. In fact, I would say yours is more interesting. I know I need to tilt mine so that it looks as cool as yours. But you know, you're doing a lot right there. And I think that it was good that you took a picture like that and it made you see how cool the arms could be. Like I know me personally, if I went to draw this without even seeing your pose, I probably wouldn't have drew the arms that interesting. But part of what you captured here, I think, is a very interesting way to hold the sword, and you got that from looking at a photo of yourself, and I think that's just smart, you know. So good job on that.
Thank you. This is actually the classical way of holding a katana, and preparing to attack in samurai movies and whatnot. So
Right.
this is where this idea was born from.
Yeah, no, and it's great that you're paying
I don't know if
attention to
it's
that and you
accurate.
understand that.
I don't know if it's accurate in sports, but I've seen it in movies and games like that, and it's quite an interesting pose. I like martial arts a lot, so there's a lot of really cool movement to martial arts.
Very cool. Yeah, and I like on yours how you got this arm tucked in even more. I didn't do that on mine, and that's what's neat too about studying reference. It makes you start paying attention to things that you were already drawing that weren't correct, but you thought they looked cool. And then all of a sudden you start to pay attention, like you said, martial arts movies are great, you know, and then you go, oh wow, okay, yeah, they're holding it this way, not that way, and what was I thinking? And so it's great to do those types of studies. So let me just draw like, you know, a pose for you and kind of talk about how I would work through something what I consider to be more dynamic. And again, I think it's really important to start the day with practicing a bunch of poses. I usually do at least 10. I'm not saying every time. Sometimes I make the mistake to not do them, but it's important to try to always do them 10, 20 poses a day, but really quick. And then it really warms you up. Think gesturally about the body, get used to drawing your own characters. And then when you do see that great pose in a comic or in a movie, something will just a light bulb will kind of click and you'll be like, all right, that's something I need to try to draw in my style. And I think that's the best way to really catalog a ton of great poses. And then when you go to draw your comics, it seems to just kind of, you know, come out a little bit more naturally. So let's do a pose real quick, talk about that. So for instance, a lot of times when I go to do this, a lot of the same ones will come out at first. So I have to try to fight that, but sometimes I'll let that just occur anyways. So for instance, say I'm trying to draw like a swinging punch or something. I'll put like the head there. I'll think about placement of the spine. You know, you can throw in action lines, which are good to do. So you can get like a line there, maybe a leg
Can
here.
I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
If I want to put an object in the focus of, like the focus of the camera, should I draw the pose first, or should I just draw the body and then put the part where I want to have my perspective on later? I tend to start by doing the object and focus first, and then build the body around it.
Yeah. No, I mean, whatever way you feel most comfortable with. I think that most people are going to tell you that you should draw perspective first. You should have the scene mapped out at least a little bit. I'm not doing that for this particular exercise. I'm talking more about bodies, but it is probably the right way to go. Now, I'll be honest. I traditionally draw the characters floating in the air, and then I construct a background around it. I think I've done it long enough that way where I can do it, but it doesn't mean it's the right way to go. You know, so I think perspective should always be first. If if I was to tell somebody if they didn't know and they were, the fork was in the road, I would say do that. but back to what I was saying about action lines, like a lot of like figure drawing, they're going to tell you use action lines, use flowing lines, sweeping lines. I don't think that's as, like you don't have to do that because you're going to, draw a lot of style over top, but it is important. Like if you can get in the habit of, drawing these lines and then you kind of construct your body over the top, your torso in here. For the torso, you can use a little bit of a bean shape. So you got one arm, hyperextended or kind of really extended forward, one back here. And then I'm trying to twist the body just because it'll make it look a little bit more extreme. So I'm going to bring a leg up here, leg back
Can we use
here.
the Spider-Man technique in this one?
Yeah. And I do a lot of zigzag lines, like I always tell people, like for arms, this is the one I like the most, a lightning bolt effect. It's just it's easy and it makes you think about the anatomy of a shoulder, bicep, forearm, and look how easy you can kind of connect that and make an arm. Yeah, it's a really easy approach, and you just attach a fist. And well, that's a bad fist. Hold on. There we go. It's a little better. But yeah, it's a really easy technique. So right here, same thing. Shoulder. Now we're a little bit away from the bicep because the bicep from this angle is going to be more on the other side. So you have to kind of imagine that. But then back here, and here's the forearm. Something like that. In the back, you get that center line to the back in place first. If it's a slimmer character, you start to see more of the scapula, especially in a pose like this. If they're bigger and bulkier, some of those other muscles are going to kind of take more dominance in an area like that. But I would definitely, flesh it out like this first. And then this leg, if I want it to really come out towards camera, I almost want to immediately get that knee like up front and almost work back a little bit, at least mentally. Because if I don't, I tend to work down too much. I don't know how to explain that. But like, for instance, if I don't put this as a placeholder right here and then work out, it's almost like I might just take a lazy route and say, well, this leg could just be down here.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So I like to get the plane changes in. And to me, the plane change of the knee is a pretty strong one. And then I can work back from there and I can try to connect the dots a bit. This one can go down, so it's going to be a lot longer. And remember, the distance from here to here is basically like from the lower pelvis to the collarbone. So it needs to be somewhere around that same height there. And then you can put lots of little curves in with the legs because they just don't connect straight up and down is the main thing. Like, how an arm, I talked about the zigzag,
Yeah.
Well, with a leg, it's real important to think about the leg like this. But then when you get down to the knee, you'll see a lot of people's knees kind of bow out like this, right? And then you get to the lower leg. You got a diamond here. So it does this kind of sweeping curve. In fact, you have this S. The sartorius goes from your aces up here. It comes down like this. And I want to say down to the inside of the knee. I could be wrong there, but it's something like that. But then that curve picks back up right along the calf muscle. And so just remember the stretched out S when you go to do your legs. Just like that. And if you start doing that, you start realizing like, oh, wow, the legs are pretty crooked almost. Like, this part is relatively straight, but this part is really bowed. See that? So just little things like that. But I like to focus on this curvature of the inside of the leg and then make sure that this outside leg has a larger bend. And this one's more of a diamond on the inside of the leg. But yeah, so back to this. Bring that over, get to the knee. Figure out how much the leg is folded back and how much these shapes need to overlap to kind of squish the lower leg back there. And bring a foot out here somewhere. Kind of cheating because nobody's foot would be pointed that far down, but it's easy to draw. And then maybe it's somebody doing like a power pose. Just put the pointed hand at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then back here, I would draw just like a portion of the upper back. So since we have this twist going on right here, I would make sure to, you got to figure the hips way over here. The abdomen's going to come down into here somewhere. Get a little bit of the rib cage here, the lat here. It's almost too much of a twist, but I think too much sometimes is better than not enough, especially in comics, because it's like we're trying to draw things that are more overly expressive,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it can be a bad habit to like play it safe too much, especially with your dynamic poses. You can fall into a habit of trying to draw realism or something. And I feel like
Mm.
if you want
Yeah.
realism, just watch TV or watch TV shows. But if you want something that's way beyond that and more imaginative, then that's where comics are, the perfect thing. But yeah, bring this arm up like this. Remember to use the overlap. So instead of drawing the forearm way up here, which would look, obviously silly, I could I got to hide it behind that upper part of the arm. And those overlaps are really how you start getting a lot more confident at foreshortening, I think. And even that feels a bit weird, like it's just too high up in the air. So I'd probably come back a little bit on that and try to drop.
For me,
Hey, go
I
ahead.
think I should use some guidelines, like for perspective and all, if I'm gonna draw poses like this.
Yeah, I mean, whatever helps you do it. Like I think that what's happened for me and what I try to show people is that if you do enough of these studies where, like, I mean, I've sat around and I've drawn countless shoulder muscles, right? Like just sit here and drawing a floating shoulder muscle and say, okay, here's the medial head, here's the, what is it, anterior, posterior, or posterior, anterior, whatever. But you get these three heads to the deltoid, right? And I've drawn these over and over again. I still struggle with this stupid muscle, but the thing is that I've drawn it so much, and I've done these little studies where I try to think about the forms just floating there, that it's not that big of a deal now for me to try to draw it prospectively. So even though I am, I'm picturing the overall perspective, I'm really just picturing this shape turned on its side and becoming this shape. And so I think once you do enough of those studies over and over and over, you don't need the perspective as much. But again, it's good to start with the actual perspective. So, if you took your, let me get a frame here. Where is that tool? Hold on one sec.
Is the arm the most difficult part in foreshortening, like in dynamic poses?
To me, it's a leg. The arms are pretty easy because again, it's repetition. I've drawn a lot of arms, and it's it's more common to draw the arm coming up towards camera, but legs are, to me, are harder. So yeah, let's say if we put like bring my other tools over. So many tools with this software. So we'll just do like a low horizon line. That would be our vanishing point. Okay, and then you still want some of these. I usually will do this and then have them get tighter as they go back, just so it gives me a feeling of depth. Something like that, and you can have a few, same way with the vertical, but you probably don't need as many of those. I'll just leave those out for now. But so yeah, so there's a basic perspective if that helps you to start with that. Do you do this for your panel work?
Not really. I usually draw the perspective for the object that I want to bring in focus.
Oh,
It's a
gotcha.
wrong approach maybe, but I'm still like in the start of this, so I'm trying to figure that out, how to do it rightly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think it's not necessarily a wrong approach. You can definitely do it per item in the scene. But if you do it like this and you get used to making your grids, you can save those grids. You can really start to see which ones work for. I think it's kind of important to do this if you plan on drawing more storytelling and more scene creation. And if you're just going to do character designs, then you probably don't need a full perspective grid every time. But it doesn't take long. They're good to do. But yeah, so with this, like, it almost sounds like what you're doing is you'll draw something like this, and then you will place something in perspective, whether it be a box for an arm or a sword, or right, you'll do something like that. And then draw your item inside of it. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Not really. What I would do is, without the perspective part, I would just draw it and then build the perspective on top of the object.
Oh, gotcha.
But it's
All right.
not, yeah, it's not a simple box, because if we're drawing like an arm or a leg, I try to focus on the thing that's in front of me and build upon the rest of the body.
Gotcha.
So that's where it kind of gets a little messy for me, at least for my approach.
Yeah. No, but that sounds like it could work as well. I mean, it's all kind of tied together, but yeah, if you do something like this where you're drawing the perspective grid, what I like about this is, like, say for instance you're going to draw a character, you can really see your ground plane here, and if you take the time to say, say you're just going to put in like a sidewalk, building. They're building. It doesn't have to be so fancy and in depth. It could just be these simple building blocks. But then all of a sudden, once you've got this into place, your character will make a lot more sense as you draw. It's almost like, since you have this in front of you, everything else gets a bit easier. But a lot of people will avoid even this, and this is a simple layered block. It's nothing, but say something like that, and then like you can put like a city silhouette back here, whatever. But then now when I go to draw a character, I've got just so much more to rely upon so that my character does make some sense. So if I'm drawing like a character, running down the street, I know to overlap these forms quite a lot, so the torso really needs to come in front of the pelvis again, and then bring a leg forward. So that's going to be, I would draw like the opening to the lower leg, put a knee right there. Maybe bring the foot up, which looks kind of silly, but it's kind of easy to make it look like a leg running at you when you bring the foot up higher. I'd probably lower that more, but anyways, you'd see the bottom of the foot a bit. And then to hide this leg back, tuck the head down so that it's really, coming at you. Twist the torso away from the body, or twist the torso away from the body. Sorry. Twist the torso away from the pelvis, so that you got, like, here's your cross section there. Here's your cross section here. Here's the cross section here to the head. So they're all oriented in slightly different ways. Hopefully you can see that. And then really make give them the tiny arm back here, and then overlap the forearm in front of the upper arm quite significantly so that you see that foreshortening there. Maybe shadow the back leg. And you see how, like, I mean, it's real basic, but hopefully you see that would translate well into a more refined drawing.
I can see the motion, yeah.
And as I keep building over it, I would just keep refining it. I would just say, okay, that's just my basic mannequin or whatever. And as I get in here to draw, I would say, well, now I got that to kind of focus on, and then I get in here and start trying to make it look cooler. Like I start applying some anatomy. And plus, I don't want to look at this like, oh, this is all right. Like, no, it's just a guide. So if the chest needs to be lower, the chest is lower. It's not like, I want to say that I would avoid looking at this part of the drawing as like anything finalized. You're still going to make considerable changes over top of this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of it's like the same thing about using reference, like when you're talking about using your pose. Like the hard part is getting used to looking past it and saying, okay, well, I see parts I can use, but there's definitely parts I have to get rid of. And so that's why I think reference can be tough for a lot of people, because you know how you'll see artwork and you can tell it's very reference heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, those are the ones. Those are the ones you can see and you can tell. Those are the ones that are still, I don't know. To me, those are the ones that are still trying to figure out how to use reference. But then there's other artists where you see the work and you're like, wow, that's a cool style, and you have no idea that they used reference. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's the hard part is getting to the part where you start looking past what's there and you just implement some style through it and over top of it. But you know, it can be done. There's lots of artists that use tons of reference and you'd never know it.
A way to combine reference with imagination.
Exactly. And that's what that's what you want to do, because that's what gives you some great opportunities for comics, and you know, no shortage of ideas. I mean, some people are just really good at looking at cool comics and drawing a cool style, and that's great. And then some people need a little bit more reference to see what things look like as they overlap, as they recede away from the space and this and that. But yeah, you just have to try it all. There's no right or wrong way, I don't think. It's just whatever way works for you.
Can we add a little bit of clothing, kind of to see, like a bit of clothing tips here and there in this pose?
I don't do clothing. All my characters are running around happy and free, no clothes. But all right, hold on. Just let me get this weird foot in here. I'm still trying to figure out how much I would lower the foot. I would probably lower this considerably to where you still see the bottom plane change of the foot, but then you'd see some of the toes or the boot right there. So yeah, so I'd keep playing around with that. I'll be honest, I usually have to redraw feet and hands a couple times, but hopefully that shows you like just the process for like overlapping it. And there's still some weirdness in there. I'm not saying it's a perfect pose, but as I keep doing these little iterations, I'll keep fixing it more and more. And sometimes it's something little, like just making the head a little bit bigger or moving it off to the side can like fix something that's irking you about a drawing, you know, or putting a little bit of a tilt to it. You know what I mean? It's just little things that I feel like it needs to go up away from the shoulders. It feels like it's sitting on the shoulders a bit too much. Okay, and clothing, let's see. Probably blue line them again. And so I do a lot of tight pants. We do like the little wrinkles.
Oh.
And then I like drawing anatomy more. So what I do a lot of times is put like a wrinkle like that, where you see the shadow and you see it crossing over the other muscles. And then, you know, but certain wrinkles are just common that you see on any kind of clothing. And I think you had these on yours. It's where they come down, they kind of pinch around the
knee.
The knee, yep. And sometimes they'll swoop down here and crisscross. So I'll do some of that. And then down here, if it's like, you know, more material, I'll start bringing it up like this and crossing it over like this. But these are really zigzag shapes that I kind of just do over and over. And then I'll shadow a little bit of the side to make it feel like it's got more volume. And again, up here on the side, lots of wrinkles. And also I got to make sure that all these wrinkles through here, especially from here back on this other leg, they have to be downward bends. Where here they can be upward bends, because I'm bringing this leg towards us, like, you know, oh, that's a bad arrow. I'm trying to bring this leg out like this.
Oh, okay.
So if that was a dimensional arrow. But yeah, but on these other ones back here, this all would be downward bends. You see the difference there? And then that coupled with the rendering and also the heavier line weight. So as you start bringing this foot out, you want to really push a big, heavy line weight around it, and that'll help make it more dimensional. And then up here, you know, give them a big, big open collar shirt. Something from the 70s. Some chest hair.
Is this Luke Cage Power Man?
Sure. I was thinking it was Rick Bulow, man. How do you say your last name, bud?
Bulow.
Bulow?
Bulow.
Okay. Just making sure I wasn't slaughtering it too badly.
I actually started saying it in your way as well, because everybody does Bulow just out of reaction.
Right.
Because it's a hard word to say.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry for whenever I mess up anybody's name. I don't like it because I grew up with people slaughtering my name. You know, in school.
Robert?
Yeah, Marzullo.
Ah.
So like when I was in school, whenever the teacher would start to stutter, I knew they were calling my name, and I'm like, I'm over here. They'd be like, marsupial, macaroni, just all over the place. I'm like, Marzullo, goodness.
It's not that high. I've
Yeah.
actually said it correctly from the start then, because Marzullo is what I've always said, because it's straightforward in my view, at least.
Yeah. Well, where are you at? Like, what part of the world are you at?
Denmark.
Denmark? There's probably a bunch of Italians over there, right?
No.
Well, that's messed up.
There's a good Italian pizzeria owned by an Italian just nearby, so there's some.
Well, I'm going to tell my buddies there's going to be a bunch more over there pretty soon, so you get ready.
Oh, I'm ready. It's Italian food. I'm ready for.
Right? No, I'm biased, obviously, but yeah, I love it too. But that's how I drop in the wrinkles. Like here, I got some pinching going on from where the belt area would be, coming up and kind of swirling around to match the twist of the torso. I feel like the torso looks weird, and then. Yeah, and like I said, I keep pushing this stuff back and forth. So like for instance, I feel like to make the upper torso look bigger, I need to push in the side of the legs more. Keep adjusting these proportions as I go. This arm looks kind of too big, but again, that's stuff I just keep modifying as I progress through it. And now I feel like the head does look too big. And I'll show you, like, even with the hair, like I would get the head the right size, get the face. Usually I start with the face because I feel like if I don't get the face right, none of this other stuff matters anyways. But since we weren't really talking about that, I wasn't trying to jump in and draw a face here. But just so you know, generally or always I start with the face because it's the most important part of the character. So I generally do that with every scene. Like, what is the most important thing about this scene? And then I'll work into the other stuff, because if I can't get the major aspects of it right, then the rest isn't going to work. And I think that's why most artists would tell you got to do the perspective first, because everything else comes from there. So got to get that right first. But yeah, with the hair, if they had little wavy hair or whatever, I just try to throw it around a lot. Really get some movement in the hair, because it's going to make it feel like the character's running at you a bit more. There's some falling down in front of their face a little bit, but a lot of it off to the side. And a trick for the hair, I think, is drawing like a larger shape first, kind of a container, and then getting that working, and then doing these little flips and strands that come off of there. That seems to be like an easier way to do it, instead of trying to draw like a bunch of different hairs and some are moving this way, some are going that way. It's real easy to kind of get that all messy and messed up. So yeah, I think the bigger shape first kind of works. Yeah, this arm is weird. I'm going to bring this more. Try one more. It's more in front of this portion of the so I sit here and do this constantly where I'm like moving shapes around, overlaps around, and
Mm-hmm.
resizing things. I feel like the leg could be longer too, the front leg. Yeah, it looks like it's a bit awkward. Hold on. Yeah, let's do that. Now, do you work digitally or traditionally?
I work so far, or I'm most comfortable with traditional at this point. But I also want to include digital, so I do want to dabble in both eventually.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious because I know I'm sitting here moving things around, which on paper you're going to obviously erase it and redraw it all together, but for the most part, unless you use a light table.
Oh, I don't use a light table. I usually would erase and make it lighter and then
Gotcha.
build upon it.
Yeah, so that's, and actually I got too much of the forehead showing. Just bring that down.
Now you basically just made an 80s looking Quicksilver.
Yeah, I don't know, but hopefully the process is coming through. This is what I do, and some of them come out better, and then other ones I'm like, I learned something here. I got to go back and draw it again. But maybe I figured something out. But there's a lot of like pushing shapes around basically.
And that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you learned as much as I did. Sarah, did you learn anything?
Yeah, there was lots of neat hacks and tricks. I really like the Spider-Man one. It's my favorite.
And that's why I'm such a big fan of you, Robert. Whatever you do, whether it's live streams, YouTube, Gumroad skills here, in all of your classes and videos, you show such a deep compassion and passion in general for teaching and wanting people that watch alongside you to improve. And personally, I felt that when I started watching you, and the more I watch you, the more I felt like I wanted to do it as well. And that is why I'm doing this now. So thank you for all you've done. I greatly appreciate it. So people, if you don't know Robert Marzullo yet, links down in the description. Go check him out, and I guarantee you'll learn something. And I can't forget, our student, Serah Semba, her links will be down below as well. Go follow her. Go check her out. See how much she progresses from every piece of art she puts up. It's highly impressive. I'm highly impressed by seeing her work. I love following her work, and I'm pretty sure you will too. So links in the description for both.
Yeah, your work's looking great. I just want to say it was an honor to, participate in this, and you're doing so many things right. It was kind of hard for me to pick apart, like try this, do that, because a lot of it looks really good. You have a very unique style, and you're expressing lots of ideas on the page. Yeah, and you're not being afraid to put, suit designs and clothing and all the stuff that makes these characters really cool and exciting. You're not afraid to put that on there. So yeah, you're doing great. So just keep it up.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. That means a lot.
You're welcome.
And with that being said, it's time to bring in some final words. I'll start with the student, Sarah. Any final words?
Today was a lot of fun, and I hope that everyone kind of picked up some hacks and tricks like I did. The Spider-Man hack is really cool, and my favorite superhero is Spider-Man, so that's why it probably ended up as a favorite. And I hope to be here again.
I'm so happy to hear that you enjoyed being with us. I enjoyed having you as well. Mr. Marzullo, any final words?
I just want to say thanks very much for allowing me to be part of this. And, I think it's such a cool idea because, like, one-on-one mentorship is so powerful. I know that when I've had the opportunity to have artists that were longer in their journey than myself, and then they impart like little bits of wisdom of like, hey, have you tried this? Guess what I do? Something opens up our minds about that because a lot of times we're just kind of searching around like, what's the right decision, and there's so many possibilities. But then we get confidence from seeing somebody else do it a certain way, and then we're like, oh, well, maybe that's the right way. It's not necessarily it's the right way, but again, it gives us confidence because once we see somebody do it and they explain it in the way that they do it, it can be very powerful. So yeah, I think these are a great idea. I think that as time goes on, you're going to see a lot more online mentorships, and yeah, so good job, Rick.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The first episode of Mentor Blog is done. Now, sadly, I also have to say that this series is coming to an end before it even really gets started. Due to changes in my personal life, I sadly do not have the time to continue these episodes. However, in the upcoming weeks, there will be at least one more episode coming before it's all said and done. And who knows? Maybe if things change again, I will be back with more Mentor Blog. But for now, I'm Rick Billow. This has been Mentor Blog. Keep creating, keep having fun, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.